We are live.
We are live. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Rebecca. It's been a
How
long time.
are you? Yeah, that's great. And hi, everyone, as well. We've got an audience here today.
Yep. Yep. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming, everyone. Yeah.
yeah. Welcome, everyone. We're curious, where are you calling in from? We want to know where people are. So go ahead and drop it in the chat so we know who we're talking to. I know I'm in Oakland, California. Jeff, where are you?
I'm across the bay in San Francisco, California.
Nice. That's great. And where are you guys from? We are curious. Drop your answers in the chat so we can understand who we're talking to today. And I think while we're waiting for that, just because there's always a delay on these things, Jeff, what do you think we just go ahead and get started?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm curious, if there's if anyone can post in the uh, in the chat, it'd be great. Oh, yes, here we go. Alexis Church is in Tacoma, Washington State.
Oh, hey, Alexis. Oh, cool. Alexis is one of my clients and like a top student, I should say. Yeah. Hi, Alexis.
Oh,
Nice. Ernesto Estrada from LA. Hi, Ernesto. Wow, it's been a long time. I hope you're well.
yeah.
Takeshi from Frisco. Awesome,
Mhm.
Takeshi. That's
Frisco, Texas,
amazing.
just to make that clear.
Texas, all caps. Yeah. Hey, Dave. All right. Dave and I used to work together ages ago. Ages ago. It's good to see you, Dave. Awesome.
And
Great.
all the other shy people who have not told us where they're from, good morning as well.
Yeah, we're excited to get started with you today. Well, shall we get started, Jeff?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, everyone, welcome to Presenting the webinar. And we have so much to share with you today, and it's going to be a lively conversation. And we want to start actually with a question for you.
Mhm.
And this is the question that really launched the book that we wrote together. So, Jeff, if you would please show this question to the audience. And audience members, we want you to answer this question in the
One
chat
one
again.
moment. I have to open the presentation. Give me one moment,
Okay,
and
great.
and then I'll share it. Okay. Present. Um, uh,
Presenting. There's
wow.
always all of this tech stuff that you have to figure out, especially on a new platform like we're using today. So thanks for your patience, everyone. We
Yeah.
appreciate
Give me a second. I forgot that part. Uh, Continue.
it. Okay. All right. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to ask the question and we want to get your responses in the chat. And then you'll see the question pop up in a second. So the question is this: what's your biggest struggle when giving presentations? And it can be an online presentation, an in-person presentation, whatever it is. So there's the question. What's the biggest struggle you have when giving presentations? So go ahead and drop your answer into the chat. And this is the question that, again, is going to launch us into our conversation today. So, Jeff, I'm curious for you, what's your biggest struggle when giving presentations?
Well, preparing, right? I feel like you have to prepare very over and over again. You really have to dial it. That little technical flub of trying to get the slide up,
Mm-hmm.
you have to really make sure, because it wasn't open. If we hadn't practiced a lot, I wouldn't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're on a presentation, it can make you very nervous because you're in front of people. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't practiced,
Mm.
you're gonna freak out,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and freaking out, of course, is the enemy. Ernesto says building the story in a format that's engaging.
Mm,
Yes, I see that a lot, Ernesto. And of
mhm.
course, that's something that we worked on together when we were working on that project all those years ago. I think my biggest struggle is just allowing myself to be present in the presentation. I think sometimes I get too much in my head because there's a lot to communicate and I have to consistently use the practices that I know work for me to maintain presence. Zach Millette, hello, welcome. Zach's biggest struggle is engaging with the audience. Yes, big struggle. I see this all the time.
Z-
And
Zach, where are you dialing in from?
yeah, And Alexis says, agreeing with Zach. She says also making sure you're meeting the audience's needs. Oh, I love that, Alexis. That is really great. And it's something that I want to touch on today, because I think this is one of the biggest struggles that people have. And this is connected to why a lot of people have so much anxiety and nerves when they're presenting. So we'll talk about that. And then Dave says, trying to think about your presentation at the same time you're trying to give it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the
Right.
meta of it all.
Yeah, that's why you need to prepare a lot, because then you don't have to think about it as much.
Exactly. All right. Welcome, Zach from Atlanta. All right. Nice. Well, thanks for your answers, everyone. It's a great way to kick off this conversation. And like we said, this is the question that really launched this book project that Jeff and I worked on together. And we can speak to some of those points at the end of the presentation. And anytime during the presentation, if you have a question, you can feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end of the Q&A. Okay.
Yeah.
But first, who are we and why should you trust us, essentially? Jeff, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So I actually took this photograph last night. I went into my archives and found a lot of old interviews I've done over the years. These are like these ones are actually from the 90s. And I continued to do this into the early 2000s, but I interviewed people for magazines, people like Allen Ginsberg for Details and David Byrne for Wired. And that's really what launched my writing career here in the United States of America. And how about you, Rebecca? Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I am, as you can see from this photo, I am the daughter of my father, and my father was actually an opera director. And you can see him there with an opera singer backstage that was probably in Germany somewhere. So from a young age, my dad was pulling me on stages and saying, hey, do this thing and make the audience laugh and do this. So I developed a love for presenting and being in front of people from a very young age. And I learned a lot from my dad as well. He worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, like Luciano Pavarotti, for example. And that over time, I mean, I always loved this, but I worked in language and communications for a long time. And so the two just naturally met together. And I found myself coaching people, especially students at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, individuals and teams at Google, Meta, and Netflix, amongst many other companies. And it's really presenting and teaching people how to take a stage and feel confident when they do is something I really love. So that's how Jeff and I came together. And actually, Jeff, maybe tell the story about the interview process of the book a little bit, because that's going to help people understand what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so the book, I'm going to change to the book slide. So we wrote this book by conducting a series of like 15 interviews over the course of a year. And each of the interviews was 45 minutes to an hour. And then we took that text and edited it and rearranged everything to make it very cohesive. And that's how the book was created. And I'd always thought, oh, that would be an interesting format for a book, to interview someone. And I finally did that with Rebecca. And it turned out to be a very good book that's very, what would you say?
It's conversational, so it's easy to read. It feels like you're just listening to two friends talk. Yeah. So it's very engaging. It's very easy to read. And I'll show you right here. It's actually a physical thing, which is super cool. This is our author's copy that we got. So there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge and best practice in here for presenting. And we're excited to share with you today some of the wisdom and guidance that we share in this book, because we want you to be better presenters. Because what's true is that, and Jeff, if you can go to the next slide.
Oh, was it here, or do we want to?
It's the next slide.
Sorry about that.
So what's true is that giving memorable presentations is the number one way that you can be more visible and advance in your career. But what's also true is that many people, and you can go to the next slide, Jeff, many people struggle to captivate an audience and leave a lasting impression, right? We've all been in presentations that are just yawn fests, right? And we're like, when is this going to end? And then when it's done, you wonder, well, what was that about, right? So we want to avoid that. We want to get in front of people more to be more visible and advance our career. And we want to give presentations that people remember and say like, wow, that was a great presentation. So with that in mind, what we want to share with you today and have a conversation around, and here's our agenda, is Jeff and I, we're going to have a short interview similar to what we did for creating the book. And then we're going to end it with a Q&A so we can get questions from you and have a lively conversation. So with that in mind, Jeff, shall we get started?
Absolutely. So here's the first question, Rebecca. Why is presenting important to your career?
Yeah, well, like we said in that last slide, presenting, taking the mic metaphorically, like actually, is the best way for you to be more visible. It's something, I think we can all agree that something happens when someone gets on a stage or on a camera and talks. And something happens, meaning that, oh, all of a sudden we see them as, maybe we want to call it a leader. We see them as someone who is confident, knows what they're talking about, right? Something happens, it elevates you when you have the courage to step up.
Yep.
And to be sure, so many people don't want to do this, that it's really, it's an easy way for you to pop up above the fray, so to speak, in your career with your recognition, visibility, all these things. So that's why I encourage people to do it as much as possible, because it sets you apart from the crowd.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest mistake you see people making when presenting?
The biggest mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are so many different things we could talk about here. I think one of the biggest things is that, well, I'll share two because I can't hold myself back. So definitely, like, let's talk about slides for a second. Okay.
Mhm.
Too much text on slides across the board, especially this is very rampant in tech companies. I see this all the time. And so imagine a slide, you've seen a million of them, a slide with a ton of text. And the problem with this is that, okay, maybe sure, that's your script and that's how you're going to remember what to say, but your audience cannot read and listen at the same time. This is actually impossible to do. So what you're doing is you're putting text in front of your audience. And what do? They immediately start reading because they can't stop themselves from reading. It's just, we're human beings, right? So you're preventing them from listening to you. You're preventing them from listening to you. They're not listening if they're reading. And therefore, why do you even need to be there?
Right.
So you're precluding your whole participation in your own presentation. Okay. So too much text on slides is the number one mistake. And then number two mistake is tied to that, which is reading your slides. Because then you become this automaton, this robot. And again, you're precluding, like, why do you even need to be there? I work with a lot of founders on pitch decks. And they've got these pitch decks that are just full. And I always ask them, I say, oh, okay, so is this the version that you're emailing to the VC? And they say, oh, no, like I'm presenting this. And so then we go through this process of just cutting shit away because it's, again, it's impossible to read and listen at the same time. So you have to trust yourself that you know the content well enough to say it, because that's the way it comes alive.
Yep.
Not reading it. Yeah.
Yep. And so what else, Rebecca? How about, what's your biggest presentation fail in the history of your presenting career?
Yeah, I love this question because, you know, I've been doing this for a while and I love presenting actually, but I'm not perfect. And, you know, someone told me the other day, they said, oh, Rebecca, like you're intimidating, like you're too good, right? But man, I still mess up all the time.
Who
My
does?
biggest fail was, I think it was maybe 8 or 10 years ago in San Francisco, and I was doing a talk, in-person talk for International Women's Day. And I had an audience of about, I think it was about 50 people or something, not super big, but I was really excited about this presentation. And so I like prepared the script for weeks, and I memorized it, I bought a new jacket, and I really prepared. And then I got on the stage, I looked out into the audience, I started delivering, and then I totally went blank. I forgot what to say, and I had to start over 3 times. And I finally got it done, but it was just embarrassing. And the reason why, now that I can backtrack, the reason why I blanked is because I just over prepared. Like, I memorized that talk. I didn't internalize it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could talk more about that too, but
But
now
that's in the book. That's
yeah,
that that's
I mean,
yeah.
it's totally in the book. Yeah. And so I've learned not to memorize, because memorizing is really a trap. And
Yep.
it precludes you from being present. You're not being present in the moment if you've memorized something. So
And those are the types of stories that are in the book, in assembled in a coherent format. So you run through what all the mistakes are, how do you begin, how do you end a presentation, and so on. Let me ask you another question. Um, why is storytelling important when presenting, Rebecca?
oh yeah. So storytelling is one of my favorite topics. Why is it? Because
Yeah.
storytelling is so engaging. I mean, who was it? It was Zach, I think, said that being engaging, or engaging the audience, is his biggest struggle. And engaging the audience is your number one priority. If you haven't engaged the audience, you haven't done your job. It's not going to land if you haven't engaged them. You have to literally grab them and then shake them with your content. And storytelling it's the most powerful way to do this. And it's the fastest way to do this too, because people just listen. When you're telling a story, they can't help but listen. So I always coach teams, individuals, hey, lead with a quick story. And of course, I always get pushback, especially from tech companies, and especially people at tech companies, especially from men. Okay. And so what I hear them say is, oh, I don't have time for a story. I've got all this stuff I need to share. I've got a lot of data to share. And the thing is, number one, stories don't have to be long. A lot of people think of stories once upon a time. It's not that. You can tell a story in 30 seconds. We told stories right at the beginning,
Yep.
my experience with my father, and Jeff, his experience writing. Now,
Yeah.
it's not a traditional story arc, but it's still some storytelling. And
Yep.
that's engaging.
Yep.
And what's true is that if you don't engage them right away, it's really hard to get their attention back, right? Because they're on their phone or they're thinking about lunch. So it's up to you to engage them. And storytelling is the most effective way to do this. And I'll share one statistic that I love to share with my data, my analytical people, is that data is 22 times more likely to be remembered when it's shared as part of a story.
Yep.
22 times. So that's huge. If you have a lot of data to share, wrap some of it in a story, and I guarantee you people will remember it better, and they'll understand it better.
Dave, in the comments, says, what's the point of data to support the story?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And so many times I see it the other way around. People lead with the data, and then naturally the inclination is like, so what? Right? Like, data is great, but it's a support, it's a illustration, it's a detail of a larger narrative that's
Yeah.
important to understand.
Rebecca, it's 22 minutes after the hour. One more question or move on? What do you
I
think?
Well, yeah, sure. One more question. And we encourage you guys, why don't start dropping questions in the chat, and
Yeah.
we'll just transition into that naturally. But sure, Jeff, another
Let's see. Let's see. Anxiousness or authenticity? Which we've talked about some questions. Which would you rather field?
let's talk about anxiousness because I think that's super
Yeah.
common for
Yeah.
people.
What do you say to people who are anxious about speaking in public?
Yeah, well, number one, I say it's totally normal. Like if you didn't feel anxious, I would be worried about you.
Yeah.
But number two, I mean, I was a little bit anxious before we got on this call today. So again, it's totally normal. And again, you want to feel the fear and do it anyway. So how do you navigate that? Well, Dr. Allison Woodbrooks at Harvard Business School. She's done some cool research on anxiety and nerves and presenting. And essentially, what it is a lot of people, they try to calm themselves down. They try to say, okay, I'm going to do breathing exercises. I'm calm. I'm calm. But essentially, you're lying to yourself. Your nervous system knows that you're not calm. Okay. So don't lie to your nervous system, but instead just flip the story. So the story is I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. So that's like a high vibration. It's a lot of energy. What is the opposite or like a positive spin on that with the same level of energy? Well, it's I'm excited. So I work with people all the time who will say, "Oh, I'm so nervous to do this talk." And I'll say, "Yeah, you're excited to present to your audience." And they say, "Yeah, I'm excited." So it's you still feel the like tension,
Yeah.
but you're focusing on your audience, you're flipping the tone of that feeling and
Yeah.
saying, "Okay, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to talk to these people." And I'm buzzing like that.
Yeah. You're leveraging it to be more excited.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm anxious, excited. It's good.
Anxious, excited, yeah. Hi, Svetlana. Congratulations on your wedding. So exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So does anyone have any questions? Are we ready for this? I think we're
yeah,
8:24. So do people have questions for Rebecca?
yeah. And if not, we'll keep going. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got tons of questions that we can answer.
Yeah.
So we're watching the comment box.
Pardon me. We have a question that we covered quite a bit in the book, and we did a kind of launch party the other day, and a small launch party, and that question came up as well. It's a very interesting question about authenticity. So we talked a lot about this in the book, but I'll ask you again here: how can we show up with authenticity and not play a role, especially when we're nervous? How can we
Yeah,
be real? Yeah.
yeah. Authenticity, I would say in my work of helping people present, I think this has been the hardest nut to crack, really,
Yeah.
because in a way, what's the word? It's amorphous, right? Like, oh, am I authentic right now? Aren't I just being myself? It's like we actually, it's kind of hard to know. Like, am I being authentic? What does that even mean? But what I've really come to understand is that authenticity is all about connection. So connecting with the audience is how you remain authentic. So one of the reasons why we asked that question at the beginning is because we wanted to connect with you before we started going blah, 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 right? And what I see most people doing, 99.9% of people when they're presenting, what they'll do, excuse me, is they'll launch right into content. And usually at the beginning, they'll speak really fast because they're nervous. Why are they nervous? Because they haven't connected with the audience yet. So asking a question at the beginning, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I think we spent maybe 2 minutes on that question, but we engaged you guys. It gave us a chance to land and relax and be present, maybe drink some water, and
Mhm.
then really feel into the space because presenting, it's not a monologue. It's not, you're not on Broadway, people. There is a reason why you are not an actor. Like
Right.
that, those people are special. Okay. I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're doing here. A presentation is not a monologue. It's a two-way conversation with your audience. So you have to kick off that conversation. And then to maintain that connection, you want to continue to ask questions as you go. So
Yep.
TED speakers, for example, they ask on average one question every 2 minutes. And, most of the times it's rhetorical, but still, if a question is asked to you, you have to, like, human beings generally just start working on it and thinking about it and answering in their mind. So it
Yep.
still is a conversation, even if you can't hear them.
Great.
So, yeah. So top tips here are lead with a question, allow yourself to land and connect with your audience, and then ask questions roughly once every 5 minutes
Yep.
is really going to help you
Yep. So
connect.
speaking of questions being asked, we have two questions from the audience, and everyone else on the presentation, please ask a question or two so we can answer them. So Takeshi asks, how can I make my client understand storytelling presentation matters?
Mm, yeah. Well, Takeshi, just send them to me. we've talked about this before, but I think one of the top things that I like to do when I don't understand what's going on is I'll say, what's the transformation? Right? What's the transformation? Because every story includes some kind of transformation. That's what a story is. So for example, um, Frodo in Lord of the Rings, he launches out on that big adventure and then he comes back a hero. Something changed in
Right.
him.
Right. Or I wanted to write a book by interviewing somebody, and Rebecca appeared, and we did it.
Right, right. And we had some struggles along the way, and that's part of the journey.
Yep.
But yeah, so the question is that you can ask your clients, Takeshi, is okay, tell me about the transformation that your customer goes through. They start this way and they end this way. And most of the times, companies that don't understand the need for this, they won't be able to tell you that. And
Yeah.
then you can launch into the best practices of storytelling and why a customer needs to understand the transformation or needs to see how they're going to change if they use this product or service.
Yep. So
Yeah.
we have another question from Dave, and then one more from Becky. So Dave asks, we can do what can we do to find more opportunities to speak? What can we do to get more practice? I
Yeah.
for that.
Well,
Yeah.
more opportunities to speak is really, and I want to note that it's 8:30 right now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if you
we can
if
go.
you need to jump off, we totally get it. And thank you for joining. We'll keep going a little bit,
Yep.
but wanted to note the time. So finding more opportunities to speak, I've found that it's literally about putting your hand up because there are a lot of opportunities to speak out there, and honestly, most people are going to hang back and they're not going to want to do it. So if you're the first one to put your hand up, and I would encourage you, if it makes you nervous, do it. like that is what's going to grow you, is taking these opportunities that feel a little edgy. It's just going to grow you every time. And I'll give a plug to a course that I created and a series of events that I created called Presentation Mastery. And Presentation Mastery, it's a on-demand video course, but included in that course is a monthly invitation to what's called the Public Speaking Dojo. And in that dojo, every month, the students get an opportunity to present for live coaching and feedback from me, as well as from the whole group. And I can't emphasize how important it is to practice on a regular basis, because after a while, it just becomes, it's like easy,
You become comfortable. Yep.
and comfortable. And like, personally, I've come to really, really, really enjoy it. And I found that my students say that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Becky asks,
Hi, Becky.
"Hey, Becky, and where are you dialing in from, Becky?"
Becky's probably dialing in from Africa right now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Africa is far away from the bay, but there's water outside here, and if you navigate that, you can get all the way to Africa. Anyway, hi there, says Becky. How do you know if you're improving? Are there any objective success metrics you recommend measuring from one presentation to another?
That's it. That's a
Interesting.
good question. Yeah, Becky, leave it to you to ask about metrics. I love your mind. It's so great. Okay, objective success metrics. Well, it's similar to, let me use the analogy of video content and view time.
Ah,
So, yeah, so obviously, if you put video content on the internet, you get that data about, oh, how long did these people watch before they dropped off? So, similarly, maybe you're doing a webinar, maybe you are making a video and making it live. That's a presentation too. Then you want to know, how long can you hold their attention? That's a big success metric
yep.
that I use. How long can I hold their attention? How long can I engage them, captivate them? How active is the chat? Okay. How, like, are they asking questions? All of this stuff is really important.
Yep.
Those are the main things I would say. I would also say internally, an internal metric. Did I enjoy myself?
Fantastic.
Because if you're not enjoying yourself, chances are your audience feels that, and they're not going to enjoy themselves either. So how can you set yourself up for success so that you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, if there's if there are no more questions,
Yeah. Let's chat this up. So, you guys, we made a physical thing, and we're really proud of this book. I
yeah,
mean, for those of you who know me, there are a lot of people in the chat that know me. I'm a harsh critic, and I believe in excellence, and we are really proud of this book, and we believe it's going to help a lot of people
yep,
come to presenting with a different perspective, a different philosophy, and find more confidence and fun doing it. So we encourage you to get the book. We're actually we're doing a Kickstarter right now because we're self-publishing, and that Kickstarter ends on Friday of this week. So it's not just the book that you can get, but there are also a lot of cool rewards. For example, a seat in the class that I spoke about a second ago, and other rewards. So yeah, get the book today.
yeah. And when you receive the book, we'd appreciate a 5-star review, as they say. When you check out of an Airbnb, they say that. So that'd be great, because part of making a book successful is getting a lot of 5-star reviews. Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you for taking the time to focus on the skill that really does matter, not only for your career, but for your professional life as well. Think about how many dinner parties you've gone to and you've wanted to make a toast, or maybe a close friend is going to ask you to do a speech at their wedding. All of this helps you participate in the world in a bigger way, and that is really why I love presenting, is because I love for people to show up and share what's going on inside of them. So we want you to have the tools and the skills to do that better.
totally.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
I think we're done. Well, thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.